Good day, ladies and gentlemen. On today's episode of We're Talking Shift, I get to speak with Sam Sorbo. A successful Hollywood film actress, writer, and producer, Sam took a step back from her career, and then for over a decade, she immersed herself in the home education of her and her husband, Kevin Sorbo's 3 young children, ultimately leading her to become a powerful education freedom advocate. So as the prolific author, because she's got a lot of good works out there. I just finished reading one, in fact, They're Your Kids. I highly recommend it. She's a podcast and radio host, international public speaker, and mentor. Sam is dedicated to teaching families how to educate differently. And I want to say something real quick here to our listeners before we jump in. You guys, even if you aren't parents or your children perhaps are toddlers or maybe they're already adults, this subject still really concerns you because the kids in the schools and the colleges right now are the ones who will be shaping our culture and becoming the political leaders and the policymakers of the future. And those are all things that affect all of us. So stick around because I think this is a really important topic that should be on everyone's radar. Sam, welcome to We're Talking Shift.
Thank you so much for having me. And that was a lovely introduction. I think this is the topic. I don't think there's a more important topic because your education informs the way you interact with the world. It informs everything you think, believe, and do. And we have been avoiding having this conversation for a very long time. And so now the time is ripe. We see what's happening in college campuses today. That is a direct offshoot of everything that came before. We see what's happening in our schools today. It's a direct offshoot of everything that came before. None of us have been exempted, basically. We've all been injured by the system in one way or another. And so I'm just trying to save parents from that pain and save their children as well.
Yeah, save the children. I am so unbelievably alarmed and concerned by what's playing out before our eyes. And I don't have, my kids are grown. We already went through everything. My kids are in there. My son's 40 years old. My daughter's 38. I could easily just be like, oh, I don't have kids in school. This is not my deal. But everything that you just said is happening. You can't turn on the news for more than 2 minutes and see the really crazy strange things that are going on. The very first page, this quote that you put in your book, I think it's just people need to hear this. They need to understand that this has been a long-term strategy that has been going on for such a long time. And now, to your point, we're seeing the results of it, right, every day. So I want to just take a quick second and read this because it's chilling. It really is. So the quote, I know I'm going to mess up his name, but so this was Bertrand Russell quoting Johann Gottlieb Fichte. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Fichte, yeah.
Okay, so here's the quote, you guys. Education should aim at destroying free will so that after pupils are thus schooled, they will be incapable throughout the rest of their lives of thinking or acting otherwise than as their schoolmasters would have wished. When the technique has been perfected, every government that has been in charge of education for more than one generation will be able to control its subjects securely without the need of armies or policemen. And here we are.
And here we are, yeah.
Yeah.
And what education really has done is it has decimated education. So the schools aren't really engaged in education. They use that term euphemistically. They tell us that they are educating us, but they are not. They are purposely dumbing us down. They are destroying our will to be self-educated. They're destroying our will to learn. And I make that point in my books and I make that point in my talks. And it's amazing to me the number of people who, now there's a number of people who agree with me. They take their kids out. It's an amazing thing, the people who come and say, I heard you speak 3 years ago. We took our daughter out of school. It's been amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You changed our lives. That's amazing. And that's wonderful. And that's why I do what I do. But it is astonishing still to me, the number of people who agree with me. They know that the schools are, broken, although I say the schools aren't broken, but they know that there are problems in our schools and that Socialism is rife throughout the school. It is a socialist institution. I don't know how you think you're going to get away from socialism by steeping your children in socialism all day long. They know all of this horrible stuff that's happening in the schools. And they say, but our school, just go good public school. We have a good, this happened to me at an event recently. And the parents were, I had done a quick spiel talking about communism versus capitalism. And they were like so on board. It was a political event. So they were so on board. And I said, so you homeschool your 15-year-old then, right? They're like, oh no, he goes to a very good public school.
Ah,
And I said, oh, okay, define good.
yeah.
Okay. And their definition was, it's where we went to school. That's where we met. And here's the problem. I can walk these people through this, but they won't learn because their brains have been destroyed by their own schooling. And so when I say to them, okay, your definition of good is it's the same building where you two met each other, and God bless you, that's a wonderful, lovely thing.
Right.
But even if he has your locker, that's not anything to do with the schooling that he's getting. The books have changed, the teachers have changed, the administration has changed, the entire environment has changed. And you're saying it's a good school because location-wise, it's where you met your husband, which I don't even understand just on the face of that. Even that may be the case, that still doesn't make it in any way, shape, or form good.
Yeah.
It's a nice memory. But
Exactly. So you're conflating your experience and with actually what would make for a good school. What exactly would that be?
And these are the folks that are going to come to me later and say, oh, we wish we had listened to you. And I have that too. And it breaks my heart. There's nothing I can do for you now. You blew it. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm sounding the klaxons, the alarm bells as loud as I can. I'm waking some people out of their whatever I'm talking, they're sleep, waking them up. And the number of people who refuse to wake up is really quite amazing. We've all been conditioned to stay asleep.
Yeah, it's just more comfortable to not have to actually, I think for so many people, we're also so conditioned to be as comfortable as possible, physically, emotionally, mentally, and to have to rise to a challenge. Oh, I don't know. This is a lot. That seems really uncomfortable. I think we'll just get through it. So it's very easy, I think, for people to write it off, not really recognizing the severe repercussions of the worst case scenario. It's not good.
The best case scenario, severe repercussions of the best case. Like, what's the best case scenario?
Yeah,
your son or daughter grow up, go to college, put you in deep debt, and get a great job, and you never see them again. Like, really, what are we aiming for, folks?
Yeah.
But we can't think critically because in our schooling, we were trained to not think critically. You are trained to regurgitate what the teacher tells you without actually considering the consequences or what that actually means. There's so much that's wrong in our schools. And I love that you read, so I have my copy here and it's marked. I love that you read this book. This was the beginning of my journey. And what's amazing is I've come so much farther. There's the playbook for home learning, which really is a deep dive into what are we actually talking about when we're talking about education? Everybody says, I want my kids to be well educated. What do you mean? You need to be precise with your intentions. And that's where they get you, because they just go, we'll educate your kids. Don't worry about a thing. You folks butt out. Now they're saying, parents butt out. None of your business how we educate your kids. We're in charge. We know what we're doing. Guaranteed they know what they're doing, and it's not a good thing. And so then we have to step back and say, okay, so what is education? That's what I go through. It's actually 15 videos. And I go through dissecting what is our goal? What's our end goal for our children? So my end goal, and it took me a little bit to realize this, because what happened was I focused on academics. I was an academic in school. And so this wasn't that big of a lift, although the subtitle of that first book is Inspirational Journey from Self-Doubter to Homeschool Advocate, right? Because I was full of self-doubt when I started.
Sure.
But then when I leaned into the academics, I was like, oh, okay, we can manage this. I can get this figured out, or I can hire a tutor or whatever. But I realized that education really involves like the whole child. Like, let's talk about character. Let's talk about why you don't steal things. Let's go to the store, return the candy that you stole, and have
Yes.
you apologize to the store manager. Let's do that once and see what that feels like.
Yeah, my mom made me do that.
Yeah. And it was funny because the store manager was like, "Oh, no, that's very bad." He, my son was crying, and he was like, "Oh, but no, actually, no." I put him on the spot. So then I started to realize, oh my goodness, they've stolen the family. They've
Yes.
stolen the parents from the child and the child from the parents. And so now we're a largely unparented society. So
Mhm.
when we talk about raising our kids, my goodness, we're like, I don't know how to do that. It was never done for me. So how am I supposed to do that?
Right.
And so I'm trying to wake people up to that and train them in basically the best approaches towards the rearing of your children, walking them into adulthood. And here's the beauty. We can turn this around in one generation, really.
Yes.
Our children want to be like you, the parent. When the parent chooses another person or organization, the school, for instance, to be the adult in the room, to be the father figure, really, to be the parental figure, which is what the school is now doing. And they're brazen about it. They're like, parents, you butt out. We're taking over. You no longer have a role in this. When the parent appoints someone to usurp his or her authority in the home, it destroys the family.
Sure. No, I agree. And that's such an erosion of part of the foundation of our what makes our society. It's such a big part of it. And we're seeing such a massive breakdown of the family unit. And then people are going, what's wrong with the kids these days? I could name a whole bunch of stuff real quick here. But I think what's been happening is for a lot of people, I think they think, oh, what is going on now? And they don't realize that there's been this kind of slow, creepy crawl into this thing that's been going on for a long time, for many decades. But as what has really been revealed to be happening to so many, unbeknownst to them, especially in recent years with lockdowns, and all of a sudden the curtains pulled back and people are like, what the hell is that on your screen? I think that it's really abusive what is going on with our young people and our children. And you are the only other person that I've actually heard use that same phrase, that same word, that this is abusive to
Oh, yeah.
children. The thing that's what is happening. Tell us, for you, in your words, what you think is abusive about the school system for people to know.
I'll just paint a broader picture than that. And then I'll go into the abuse, the actual abuse that's happening in the schools. We hate children. This entire culture hates children. It's like we're jealous of them. How dare you have a childhood? No, we're going to lock you in a room with a lot of other kids that you're somehow supposed to learn social skills from. I don't get that argument at all. We're just going to lock you in a room and basically force you to sit at a desk and do busy work all day. And then when you think you're done and you get to go home, no, you've got more homework to do. That's cruel.
It is.
But if you want to go into the nitty gritty, what's the first thing? We all know that children are infinitely curious. Why? What for? How come? How many? When? Who did? Who? Where? Why? The first thing that they learn in school is how to ask a question, right? And how are they supposed to ask a question? They're supposed to sit quietly
Mhm.
and wait their turn, raise their hand for permission to question. What's the worst thing you could do to a child is tell them, sit down and shut up. Stop asking questions until I allow you to ask questions. That's child abuse. That's the very first thing. Now, I've had people say to me, I had somebody question me at a seminar once. It was funny, or a conference. Sam, what are the teachers supposed to do? They need to keep order in the classroom. You know what I said? That's their problem. I don't want kids in the classroom. So don't come to me with your stupid problems because you're creating them. I never said to my children, and I had 3, so arguably it was a little bit of a cacophony at times. I never said to them, no, you raise your hand first. You're not allowed to speak without getting permission. No, absolutely not. I would never do that to a child. Now, Sometimes when children are interrupting and they're interrupting adults, they need to be trained. That's different. That's respect.
Yeah,
And by
courtesy.
the way, we give our children the same respect. We don't just talk all over them. We don't railroad them with our talk as if they don't exist. At least I never did that, because that's cruel. That's rude. So the very first thing that children learn in school is abusive, but we can go farther. I think I painted sort of the broad picture. You need to be, okay, how about this? Stop reading that book. It's time for math. Cool. Look, none of us would put up with that.
Yeah.
And if you're at work and your boss comes in and says, stop what you're doing, I need you to go do this, you're earning a paycheck, so you better hop to it. But you don't appreciate it because you were in the middle of doing something. Hopefully it was work related. So none of us would put up with that. But we do that to kids all the time. No, bell rings, you're on deck. You got to do this, you got to do that. And there are lots of those that we never even think of. We never think of. How
Sure.
about this? How about the teacher is just, she's having a bad day. Don't be stupid. That's abusive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you don't know that even happened. I'll tell you a quick story. My daughter my daughter, it was after her 16th birthday. She came to me and she said, I think I finally figured out where I learned I was stupid. And this was news to me. I'm like, wait, what? So she had gone to kindergarten, half day, cute little school. I thought this will be good. She'll meet some friends, right? It's play, kindergarten's play. What's the worst that could happen? And then I homeschooled her all the way through, but we struggled. We struggled with math. We struggled through some things, but she's very bright in ways that I can't fathom. She's not mathematical. I am, right? So my brain works that way. Hers doesn't, but hers works completely differently and at a genius level with words and things. And so and thoughts, and she says things like, that's like she'll come up with some analogy and I will just go, whoa, that was brilliant. Apparently all this time she thought I was lying to her because I was a mother, and mothers are supposed to tell you that you're brilliant. And I guess she finally started believing me, and she realized that she thought she was stupid, and she wondered where that came from. And it came from kindergarten.
No.
And she remembers the day now, because it was the day they did sight words. And the smartest little boy in class went up and he read every single word perfectly in front of the class. And then it was her turn, and her plan was to read every word perfectly, but she didn't. So they laughed. And I guarantee you it was something along the lines of, I go to pick her up and the teacher says, oh, it was the cutest thing. So we did sight words today. You might want to work on those with her a little bit, because she stumbled a little bit, but we all laughed. It was funny. It was fun. It was fine.
Oh.
So I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
But my very shy, it just blew her mind.
Sure. Yeah. Oh my God.
And those are the formative years. If you don't plan to homeschool your kids, just don't send them to school until they're 8. How about that? How about that's the deal we make? And all you need to do from 0 to 8 is get them reading. How about that? No math. Don't worry about math. Don't worry about physics. Don't worry about science. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just between 0 and 8, let's just try to get them reading a little bit. And how you teach your child to read, you read to your child. It's really not more. Don't work on phonics. Don't work on, do if they want to, if you want to, as long as it's not super stressful. But we've taken on this mantle of, well, the experts have told us this has to happen by age 3. This has to happen by age 4, by age 5.5. This better be happening. And so we've taken that very much to heart. And we're so concerned that our child won't conform. Why? Because we went to school. So we learned that conformity is the very best value, right? We're all messed up. We're all messed up when it comes to our own kids. And so I'm trying to set people free from that, because that's absurd. Your child is uniquely made. They have a unique gifting. Your job is to uncover that gifting and then get the heck out of the way.
Yeah.
Set them free, because they will shoot like rocket ships, as long as you don't burden them with having to learn calculus or having to learn whatever it is that you think must be super important because the experts said that it was really important to learn.
But that's what they
told
told
say that calculus isn't important. I love calculus. I said I'm a mathematician, so that's me. And I was really glad that I learned calculus, but I was self-motivated. I wanted to learn.
Sure. But did you learn it when you were 6?
No, I waited a little bit longer than that.
Exactly.
Although I just heard somebody, now I can't remember who, but they learned calculus when they were 12. And I'm like, That's amazing.
That's
I
impressive.
don't know if I would have been that advanced.
Mhm.
I was quite advanced. And then I loved it so much I tutored it in college. Like I loved it. That's my language. That's my I speak it fluently. I love it. My daughter, not so much. And
Yeah.
so she taught me through the struggle because I was putting way too much pressure on her. And I
Mm.
should not have done that. And I will be the first to admit I did not do this perfectly, but I did it well enough. And that's my saving grace, right? I did it
Yeah.
well enough.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You have to recognize that, to your point, every child is unique and has their own characteristics, their own nature, the things that they're drawn to, the things that are calling to them at certain ages and stages. And they don't, that isn't cultivated in them when you put them in a school that is designed to make everybody a square peg in a square hole. How can they possibly flourish
Right.
when they're being, for some kids they seem to come through okay, and then some really struggle because they just can't conform and learn those things in that way at that time. It's just, it's a terrible program. It's just a terrible program, not to mention how it has now got a very seemingly specific intention that is being
Yeah.
carried out quite successfully. Then there's
But they do
that.
seek, here's the thing, they seek conformity. So you want your kids to be like every other child? Is that your goal? Then the other thing that they seek, and this is part of the child abuse, is they train us to value money above all, right? There are no morals, there are no values in the schools. It's survival of the fittest, and everybody's an accident of nature. Human beings have no value. In fact, we're a scourge on the planet. We're a cancer. And by the way, your job is to grow up and make as much money as possible. That's what college prep and career readiness. So I think that's abusive because, first of all, they are disallowing any spirituality whatsoever. Even the pagans back in the day believed in spirituality.
Yes.
So we're the first ones that are, I won't say we're the first, the commies did it first,
Yeah.
and they perfected it, and they murdered over 100 million people last century.
Yeah.
So they really, but we're really on track to do worse damage than that. And it is inculcated, it begins in our schools because they've got the little kids. And so they're teaching them how valueless they are. That's child abuse.
Yes,
To
it
teach a
is.
child that he has no intrinsic value except how much money he can make at the other end. And also against young boys, this is the newest sort of thing
Yeah.
that I'm focusing on, is it's so anti-boy,
Yes.
anti-young man. And so what they do is men are purpose driven. They
Yes.
need purpose. And the reason they need purpose is because they're not women. Women give birth. That's a purpose, right? So whether you embrace it or not, and there's no judgment here, I'm just saying, like, women know we've got this power, men can't touch it. We've got it locked up. So don't worry about that. Plus, we're super capable, right? We have the I can do everything attitude. And so that just demeans men because really, what do they come to the table with? They basically service us to provide children, and then they have to get out of the way, basically, unless they have this purpose to, I don't know, to be a patriarch, to be the ruler of their domain, which
Mhm.
is, by the way, like, I super support that. I think that's a fabulous thing. And I cook for my husband, not all the time, and I'm not that great a cook, so sometimes he prefers I don't, but I'm just saying, I'm not above serving my husband, because don't you know, if there's a break-in, he's the one that's getting out of bed, not me.
Yeah.
He's not going to hand me a gun and say, hey, go see what's up. That's not going to happen. We have two roles. What the schools have done is they've emasculated young men by
Mhm.
making them sit at desks all day, which is a predominantly female-ish atmosphere, with female teachers, by the way. Most of the teachers are female. Some of them are now male, but they have all these young boys. They're preventing them from, I say, little boys 8 and younger should be outside hitting things with sticks. That's their job. That's what they should be doing,
Right.
destroying anthills and getting
Yeah.
bitten and figuring out how to deal with pain and climbing trees and breaking their arms
Wrestling.
or whatever. But we don't do that. We send them to school and we force them to sit it down. It's so
Yeah.
emasculating. Not to mention, we train them in cowardice. And we've been
Mhm.
doing that for decades. So don't even try to say that this is all new and I didn't know this was happening. This has been happening for decades. Years and years ago, after World War II, we had the duck and cover videos, and you can look them up online. And they trained all the children to duck and cower under their desks in the case of a nuclear attack. And
Mhm.
everybody knew that was useless. So if that's useless, why would they do it? To keep the kids from running out of the classroom? They were going to be decimated anyway. So why? To train them to be cowards. They
Yeah.
train them to hide under their, don't stand up, don't try to fight. No, the noble thing to do is to be a coward. That only trains what? That trains you to be taken over. And boy,
Right.
don't you, they're coming for us now.
Yeah. It trains
We've got
weakness.
a nation of male weakness, sadly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I have a real problem too with this basically war on manhood, war on men. And that is literally, that's a whole other subject matter that we could spend hours on, and I would love to at some point because I'm really pissed about it, honestly.
no, they're all related. That's none of this is, oh, that's completely new. I never could have seen that coming. It's all there. And here's the joy, Loree, we can completely turn this around like that, nothing.
Yeah.
But you want to know the key? The key to all of this is one long word, and that word is sacrifice. And so here's the thing. When you deprive a young man of purpose, and his purpose is actually sacrifice, that's his purpose. I'm tearing up because it's poetic, right?
It is.
His
I get
purpose
it.
is sacrifice, right? He doesn't have to do anything until he has to lay down his life to protect those people that he loves. And he knows that he's on deck. His whole life he's on deck. Unless you deprive him of that. You deprive him of a family to protect because you put him in school all day. You deprive him of a knowledge of his purpose because you remove spirituality. You tell him his purpose is money. And he knows that's a lie because he's not stupid. These kids, they're not that stupid. They understand that they're being lied to and they're frustrated. They don't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
And that's what's creating all the malaise that we see in our youth culture today. The cutting, the suicide, which is skyrocketing for our youth, all the searching on social media for meaning, for meaning in self.
Exactly.
And like some sort of acknowledgement that I have value because, and so anyway, when you turn that around by sacrifice. So in our schools, we are trained to think of sacrifice as the giving up of, but it's not, because in our culture, in our economy, you never sacrifice anything without getting something better. That's why you sacrifice. And we think of sacrifice as voluntary. It's the voluntary giving up of. We're not saying, oh, I was in a car accident, I sacrificed my car. We would never say that.
Right.
But that's actually the intention of the definition that we apply to sacrifice. I just crashed my car, so I sacrificed it. No, we understand that the word sacrifice means what did you get in return, but we never focus on what we get in return. So what I'm trying to tell people is, if you will sacrifice, if you will invest in your children, with regardless of what the sacrifice, you give up your job, that you don't have a second car, you move to a smaller place, you move out of the city, whatever it is, the returns are greater than you can ever imagine.
Yeah. And because really it's a way of reframing it would be, how can I be of service? And I think that's the same thing for men, to your point, is that there's nothing more fulfilling than finding your unique way of being of service, whether it's to your spouse, to your family, to your country, to your community, whatever. There just isn't anything more fulfilling. And yeah, when we are forcing children all day, every day, year after year, to, especially little boys, to turn away from their kind of innate beingness, and they have no more meaning or purpose that is part of who they naturally are, all of a sudden they're lost, and they don't know that being of service, sacrificing, as you call it, is going to be the thing that will actually bring them to life. But instead, it's sit still, behave like the girls, mind your manners, sit still. And if you don't, oh, then you probably are ADD, and we'll just
we'll medicate you.
We'll medicate you
so
into
you behave
that.
more like a young girl. And then we're like, oh, why are all these young men going trans?
Or shooting up schools. Yeah.
Or shooting schools. It's funny because if you think about it, the man's calling is to sacrifice for the family. So he's the one who goes works. He's giving up his time and his efforts, his labor to support the family. And it's not that the mother doesn't sacrifice. She's got her own deal going.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the man working outside the house, I know several couples who reversed that. And
Hmm.
these women, these were career women. They were driven, they had great careers, they made a great deal of money, and they were miserable because all they really wanted to do was be home. And the men were like, I don't know what to call it, but basically effeminized because
Mm.
they didn't have a job. So their job was to take care of the kid, but there was something that was like a slacker mentality there.
Mm.
And look, bless these people, they made it work.
Hmm.
But I just remember having these conversations with these women of, I wish he could get a job, but it's not happening for him. So I'm going to keep working until whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah. And anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. Some people, there are exceptions to the rule, and some people manage to do everything, to do it that way. But it is the exception to the rule. For the most part, the
yeah, but
traditional,
what I'm saying is I don't even know if it's an exception.
yeah,
Just because they made it work doesn't mean they were happy.
perhaps. So home education it's been building now at a pretty good pace for a while, and now it's really exploding, it seems, from everything that I'm reading and the data that I'm looking at. Why do you think so many people still just shy? They know, like you said earlier, they might know, but they just shy away from it. Is it time involved? They think it's going to take time. Is it work? Is it they just don't want to? They're afraid of the commitment. Is it, yeah, that's going to require me shifting, blowing up our whole routine, all of the above?
They're selfish. They're scared. They have no idea what they're talking about, and they don't know how to do any research to figure it out. I just saw two protesters from Columbia down at New York University.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, New York University protesting. And the one was interviewed, and he asked her why she was protesting, and she said, "I don't know."
I saw
He
that.
turned to the other girl and said, "Why are we protesting?" The other girl said, "I'm not sure. It has something to do with Israel, but I wish I was better educated." So I want to point out that
Yeah.
attitude of "I wish I was better educated" is the attitude of "I don't do anything for myself. Everybody feeds me.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't feed me, then I just don't get fed." So I wish I was better educated. I wish my educators had taught me things so that I could find useful now. So we've got failure on two parts, right? The failure of the educators to adequately provide a service that they've signed up to provide, but also the failure of the student to understand that you don't learn anything unless you first choose to learn it. And you can be entirely self-taught if you'd like.
Yep.
But when we go to school, that's drilled out of us. And so we gain this sort of assumption that we can't learn anything unless some teacher comes to us and serves us and feeds us or provides for us. And so we're all like little baby birds and vulnerable. These poor girls are such idiots. I don't hold out much hope for them for their lives, because
Yeah.
I don't know if that's your starting point. And they're at Columbia University. Oh
And
my goodness. And
they
that's the state of our schools. That's why I don't advocate for college anymore. There are a few that are good, but seriously, like, why?
I
What are you
know.
hoping to get from that?
Exactly. They just, I saw that same interview and my mouth was just hanging open. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you serious? Seriously, she just said that. They don't know what they're doing.
But also it leaves us prone to our emotions, right?
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
they're all riled up. They don't know why. They're angry. They have no idea why.
No,
And
no.
they're acting out on their
Yeah.
emotions.
Yeah.
I just saw a video of a guy. He's a New Yorker, but he's down here in Florida, and he keyed a woman's car because there was a "Let's Go Brandon" bumper sticker on it. So he took his key and he just keyed the whole length of her truck. And the police body cam showed the police pulling up to the guy's house and saying, "Do you recall what you did?" And the guy's, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." This is maybe 2 days after, like this is maybe a day or two later. But the police tracked him down because they had video cameras in the parking lot of the
Sure.
store. Okay.
That's
And
awesome.
so they took the guy away in handcuffs. And he said, "Why did you do it?" And the guy's, I was just outraged. I saw that bumper sticker. I'm outraged. Now, ask him why he's outraged. He won't be able to tell you,
No.
because what they've done, the schools have rendered us thoughtless.
Yes.
We are emotional and we are thoughtless.
No rationale.
And so it's going to cost him maybe $6,000. She's prosecuting. She's going forward
Good.
just to
Good.
repaint her truck.
Oh, God.
$7 to be angry.
And you can't even explain why,
And
right?
it's
And
really,
now, fortunately, that happened in Florida where the police would actually go and arrest him and he has to pay some consequences. If this was in another state, perhaps California or New York, he'd be getting off scot-free. Nobody would be knocking on his door. And so there are no consequences. But yay, a win.
I tell you, it was like cringy watching the video. It's really good and so unsettling because such an unforced error. Like, man. And his wife comes out. She's like, what's going on? And then she learns, and she
didn't know.
so that's 6,000. 6,000 is a lot of money. Come on.
Yes.
There goes your vacation, sweetheart.
Wouldn't want to be in that household. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people are afraid. I sat in my living room coaching a gal once and I said, so really tell me, like, what is your biggest fear?
Mm-hmm.
She burst into tears and said, I think I will fail. And I tried to get her to define failure, but she couldn't define it. It was just a fear of failure. Guess where that comes from? Yeah, we were all conditioned to fear failure in school. That's why we're not entrepreneurs as much as we used to be, because failure's bad. And that's a lie, but that's a lie that we learned in school year after year, week after week, day after day. And that's why we don't try new things. We're afraid. And so I think that there's a lot of fear in the marketplace right now. Fear of failure, fear. I was afraid, but so we didn't cover this, it's in the book, but when my son finished second grade, because we moved to get to the better public schools. And so he did first and second grade. And by the end of second grade, I was like, this is not working. I didn't like the attitude he was coming home with. I didn't like what was happening in the classroom from what I could tell. And I was very involved. I didn't like the work that they were giving him to do. And I had to do it with him after school. And I was like, this must be like homeschooling, only it's at the end of the day when we're both tired and cranky and hungry. So it's got to be better than this.
Yeah.
And I said to my husband, I think that if I fail at homeschooling him, he'll still be better off. And I think at that point, I was talking about from a character perspective.
Yeah.
He'll be a happier, better adjusted individual young man, even if he wasn't like supremely educated. And I think that we've skewed our goal. They've skewed our vision that we want our children to be geniuses, but we don't care if they're criminals.
Right. Where is how can I just raise a really good human part of it? It is all about it's all designed to just have this fire hose of information that has been cultivated by whoever. Fire hose it's a one-way street, and that is not a efficient and effective way to truly bring out. That's really educating should be really about not only in informing but cultivating, as you said earlier, their curiosity and bringing out the things that are in them that they want to know about. And if you are satiating their curiosity, that just motivates them to want to do more of that. Whereas this one-way funnel of information, that most of it is useless, and it's done in such a way that is so dry and boring and probably not at the right times. And it's just, it does make young people, I think, certainly for me, not want to have anything to do with it. Fortunately, my mother read to us. And so the greatest gift I think she ever gave my sister and I was the love of reading. So we were able to go on and learn about and read about the things that really called to us and foster that. I'll just teach myself what I want to know, and I'll find my way to the things that interest me. And I think our children would be much better off. And there's just like this big gap in nobody's talking about developing a really good value system and good characteristics, the things that make you a good human being and a contributing member of society in a really meaningful, valuable way. So I'm very happy to see that homeschooling or home educating, as I know you prefer to call it, is on the rise, because I do think that it is the way that we can actually save the next generation. As you say, one generation is all it would take, and it's
Yes.
not going to happen in the traditional antiquated school system. It's just not going to. So is there any reason that you feel, any valid or compelling reasons that anyone should go on to college? Because this whole track it's nuts, but there's got to be some good reasons for somebody to go to college. What would you say?
Okay, but let's define college. Like, it's not just any upper level institution that trains. So it depends on why you want to go to college. And what we've developed is we've developed a pipeline, a school pipeline from a kindergarten to college prep and career readiness all through K-12. So 13 years of preparation to go spend a lot of money for what? They never really tell you what. You just need a degree so that you can get a career, right? Career readiness.
Yeah.
And then now we're seeing all the graduates graduating not ready for careers. And in fact, this idea that the federal government is going to bail out the student loans, what that is just transferring a lot of money to the higher education institutions.
Yeah.
That's all that is. And I say, let the higher education institutions bail themselves out because they got themselves into this mess. So let them bail out the students that they graduated knowing that those kids couldn't possibly pay them back, and putting the taxpayers on the line for that bill. I am so vehemently opposed to that. I think that they have just, this is a sleight of hand. It is the biggest grift besides Ukraine that we've seen in a very long time. And so why would you go to college? There are probably plenty of reasons to go to college. I can't think of any. I know that if you want to become a doctor, I would say go take the MCATs, study just for the MCATs. If you pass the MCATs without going to college, you're probably going to get into pretty much any medical school you want to get into. Same thing with the LSATs. If you want to take a course or two here and there, but I don't know why you need a college degree. They're not worth what they used to be. I remember I got into a conversation with there's a guy who had just been elected to public office, and he's, oh yes, the colleges are terrible. In fact, when I hire my interns right out of college, I don't even look to see what they studied. I figure if they were smart enough to run the gauntlet of those schools and keep their values in place, that's good enough for me. And I looked at him and I said, you're double talking right now. I don't know why you would hire anybody who was dumb enough to spend the money to go to college. What you do is you find the kids who were smart enough not to even bother spending the money to go to college.
Yeah.
Those are the kids you hire. And he was like,
he had no response, right?
we got to rethink all of this.
Yeah.
Now, and I suppose it depends. So I just talked to a gal who wants to be a pilot. Apparently, in order to be a pilot, you need a college degree. I did not know that.
I didn't either.
I actually have to question that because I'm not actually sure that's true, but that was her understanding. But here's the thing, they will tell you need it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you absolutely, yes. But what we've done is we've raised generations who go to the car dealership and plop down $100,000 and say, give me something with 4 wheels. And they end up with a quadra bike or whatever, a motorcycle with 4 wheels. Like, they have no idea what they're purchasing. They're just like, here's the money, give me the vehicle. Is it motorized? Nobody defined it before they went and spent the money. And I think that's absurd. And that was a trap. And we fell into it because they were in charge of setting the trap and training us to go to the trap.
Yes. And they're led to believe that if they just get through that and get their degree, then they are automatically deserving of stepping into this role in whatever they're going, whatever the field is, at a high level with a massive income, and life is going to be good. And they're very disillusioned around it.
The entitlement starts very young. Because no one's told them that their value is in a creator, like their value is invested by an outside force. And so they either invest value themselves and think that they're the bee's knees, or they have no value, and then they go on Valium or Prozac or whatever and start cutting or whatever. So we've got both ends of the spectrum because no one's telling them the truth. Yeah, you've got a lot of entitled kids. Look at the kids, look at the protesters who have taken over Hamilton Hall on the campus of Columbia. What do they to just take over a building like that that's owned by a private entity on which they have no claim, which they owe money,
Yeah.
not an entity that even pays them. Like, and then you have the Google workers who did a sit in the CEO's office and thought somehow that they weren't deserving of being fired. How dare you fire us? Sorry.
Those are the kinds of decisions people make that are driven by pure emotion with no rationale and logic backing it. It's
That's right.
just, it's
That's
just,
their problem.
it's,
And it's so funny. It's like, I have a right to protest. Yes, and I have a right to fire you. Done.
yes, exactly. There are consequences. It's you don't get to just do whatever you want and disrupt everybody around you and then have a cheering squad. There's going to be consequences. And so it's a real head scratcher for when you're looking at this playing out before your eyes going, why are they letting this happen? Why are you allowing this to happen? To have this little tiny group of people with these extreme beliefs and straight crazy behavior. Why are you letting this happen? And I know it's a rhetorical question. I do know why, but I think that there are many people that don't see the bigger picture and the bigger play here of why it's being allowed to continue, and that's again quite alarming. People really need to pull their heads out of the sand and start looking at the trajectory here over the long term and comparing it to things that have gone on in many other countries before us and see the pattern. There's a very clear pattern that is happening, and it's very disappointing that there aren't more people that are seeing it, or people that are seeing it, but again, they're maybe just afraid to say, I see this and I'm going to speak up about it, because people don't want to be like singled out and criticized and
Right,
canceled and all those things.
but also we've been deprived of our history. And so we have no idea that there are patterns. And when somebody says there are patterns, it's you're a conspiracy theorist. And yet, if we would just read some of our history, and I have a very good book that I'd love to recommend to people. I didn't write it. It's called Witness by Whitaker Chambers. It's one of the best books out there. It's just a brilliant book. It's a wonderful book to read. It's fascinating. The guy's amazing. He's an amazing writer. So it's really well crafted and well written. And it's historic. And it's some of the history that's actively been hidden from us on purpose. Highly recommend it. Really wonderful book.
Noted. I'm a voracious reader. I've made a note. I would love to read it.
Thank you
So
later.
I will. Is there anything that you would like to say in our last couple of minutes here to really encourage people that do have children at home right now who are like, I don't know. Is there like a couple of main points real fast that you want to just say, just look into it, give it a try?
Yeah, if you believe in God and the God of the Bible, then the Bible is pretty clear that children don't belong in school. It never says put them in school. It says you're in charge. So if God gave you your children and your children are considered a gift, don't give them to somebody else to open. But more pragmatically, don't send your children to strangers to be abused. You don't know these people. You don't know the strangers that you're sending your child to. I don't care how many times you've passed the teacher at the bank. You still don't know who that person is until you've actually spent years with that person. And even then, we find out weird things about people that we never knew, right? Years into it. So do not allow your children to be co-opted by people you don't know for nefarious purposes. We need to protect our children. And if that means that they won't get a good academic, if that means that for some reason, because you're an idiot, they won't get a good academic foundation, which I don't believe, because I think that if you teach your child to read, then you have opened the world to them, and the world is their oyster, and they can teach themselves anything that they choose, which is a wonderful thing. And as long as you put the guardrails on and you don't allow them like social media or just free access to YouTube or TikTok or whatever. It's a minefield out there. Don't send your kids out. It's like we're living out on the prairie again. And we're near the woods. And we keep our children home because we don't send them into the woods or into the big city. We don't send them away because we're on the prairie and we understand that there are wild beasts out there that will devour our children. And so I'm just telling people there are wild beasts in the schools, in the other places that you might just think that you might drop your kids. We're so wary today of predators at the mall or wherever.
Mhm.
And we think somehow that the predators didn't get the memo that all the kids are in the school, right? There's a reason that the Catholic Church has a reputation about young boys. It's because they literally attracted celibate men, right? They had to qualify as celibate men. And those men knew that's where the little boys were. And this example goes on and on again. So
Yeah.
now these people, they know, these predators, they know if they want the kids, they go to the Boy Scout, they go to the schools. So don't do that. And then my goodness, just open your eyes, because the world is full of opportunity for home education. And the best thing I can tell you is my relationship with my children is better than anything that I ever could have possibly dreamed. And that's by accident. Like that wasn't even, oh, I know what I'm aiming for, and that's the target I'm going to hit.
Yeah.
You can have that. And you can have this very strong family relationship if you'll only devote a couple hours a day, an hour a day, 2 hours a day, and then just allow your children to learn organically. That's really what I advocate for now. And there are programs and there's plenty of support for the home, the schooling part, the educational part, the academic part. There's plenty of that. But don't worry about that so much as the character formation of your children.
Perfect. I love it. What's going on in Florida? You've got something going on in June in Florida, and where can people find
Oh,
out more about that and everything else that you have to share with them?
oh, so I think you're talking about Comic-Con, which is in Seaverville, Kentucky,
There's,
Tennessee.
I thought I saw something in Florida around the home education.
That's in August. There's one in August.
Okay, I thought there was something
Um,
in June. Okay. I might
I'm
have
going
got
to
the
take
dates
a
wrong.
look now
Okay.
because Rise Up Con is the 30th, 31st of May and June 1st. And that is like a family-friendly, faith-based
Okay.
kind of Comic-Con.
Okay.
That's in Seaverville. People can go to riseupcon.com. I actually have a film premiere in Austin, June 14th.
Okay.
So that's different. It's not June 14th, though. Sorry, it's June 7th.
Okay.
Yes, I don't know what else is in June that I can talk about
Okay.
actually.
I'll look again. So where would you like to send people though to find out anything going on with Sam Sorbo?
Yeah, no, what I'd love is for people to go to sorbostudios.com, sign up for the newsletter. We don't inundate you with newsletters, but it's a great way for us to stay in touch, to keep you informed, and to share some good news or some nice stories. I like to put nice stories. People seem to really respond to the emails that we send. So I want people to go sign up for the emails and then click on Sam on my tab for anything home learning related. I just came out with a new product I'm very excited about. It's called the Homeschool Starter Gift Set.
Awesome.
And so it actually includes this book and then a few of my other ones and some other materials. And I've collected some curriculum samples from curricula that I really like, some of which I used. I talk about some of that in my book.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's basically the starter set to get you started, to get you to re-envision the education of your children and basically re-envision your lives for the better.
Yeah.
So exciting. So that's
Good. Good.
everything's over there, sorbostudios.com, and it'd be great to see you there. So come on over.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I do appreciate you being very generous with your time. I love everything you're doing. I 100% support it. So we will put
Thank
all of
you.
that information in our show notes and we will be in touch. Thank you so much, Sam. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet.